What happens when the person screaming loudest about justice is the one hiding the darkest truth? On a crisp autumn morning in the small town of Willow Creek, the air was thick with the scent of pine and the promise of a quiet day. But for Karen Whitaker, that promise was about to shatter in a storm of her own making. Karen, a 42-year-old real estate agent known for her sharp tongue and sharper glares, was a fixture in Willow Creek. She was the woman who'd storm into the local coffee shop, demanding her latte be remade because it was 2 degrees too cold. Her neighbors whispered about her temper, but Karen wore her indignation like a badge of honor. She believed she was the moral compass of the town, always ready to call out wrongdoing, whether it was a kid skateboarding on the sidewalk or a driver cutting her off. Today, though, her righteous fury would ignite a chain of events that would unravel her carefully curated image. It was 8:47 a.m. when Karen barreled down Maple Street in her sleek black SUV, her phone pressed to her ear as she berated her assistant about a botched open house. Her eyes flicked to the rearview mirror, catching a glimpse of a red hatchback weaving through traffic behind her. The driver, a young man with tousled hair and a carefree grin, was gaining on her. Karen's grip tightened on the wheel. "Idiot," she muttered, her voice dripping with disdain. She slammed her foot on the gas, determined to keep him in her dust. The hatchback, driven by 24-year-old Ethan Carter, a barista with dreams of opening his own cafe, wasn't trying to provoke her. He was late for his shift at Brood Awakening, and his old car rattled with every turn. Ethan noticed Karen's SUV swerving slightly, its brake lights flashing erratically. He eased off the gas, keeping a safe distance, but Karen's eyes burned with rage. To her, Ethan wasn't just a driver. He was a reckless punk, a menace who needed to be taught a lesson. At the next intersection, Karen screeched to a stop at a red light, her SUV lurching forward. Ethan pulled up behind her, his radio humming a soft indie tune. Karen twisted in her seat, glaring at him through her tinted rear window. "You think you can tailgate me?" she hissed to herself, her face flushing red. When the light turned green, she floored it, weaving through traffic with a vengeance, her SUV hugging Ethan's bumper. She wasn't just driving now, she was hunting. Ethan, confused but cautious, slowed down, hoping to de-escalate whatever was happening. But Karen was relentless. She swerved into the next lane, cutting him off, then slammed on her brakes. Ethan's heart raced as he jerked the wheel to avoid a collision, his tires squealing. "What the hell?" he gasped, his hands trembling. Karen, meanwhile, was already dialing 911, her voice shaking with theatrical panic. "There's a reckless driver on Maple Street," she cried to the dispatcher. "He's tailgating me, swerving all over the road. I'm terrified." By the time the police arrived, a small crowd had gathered at the intersection where Karen had pulled over, her SUV parked dramatically on the shoulder. Ethan, bewildered, stood beside his hatchback, trying to explain himself to Officer Maria Delgado, a seasoned cop with a knack for spotting lies. Karen was in full performance mode, her hands flailing as she recounted Ethan's dangerous driving. "He nearly ran me off the road," she shrieked, tears welling in her eyes. "I have a daughter at home. What if he'd killed me?" Ethan's face paled. "I wasn't tailgating her," he said, his voice steady but strained. "She was the one swerving, breaking out of nowhere. I was just trying to get to work." The crowd murmured, some nodding sympathetically at Karen, others eyeing Ethan with suspicion. Officer Delgado raised a hand, her gaze sharp. "Let's take a look at the footage," she said, pointing to a nearby traffic camera perched on a pole. Karen's confidence faltered for a split second, but she quickly masked it with a huff. "Good," she snapped. "You'll see I'm telling the truth." But deep down, a cold dread began to creep in. She hadn't noticed the camera, hadn't considered that her rage-fueled pursuit might have been recorded. As the officers reviewed the footage at the station, a new figure emerged in the story. Lila Nguyen, a quiet 19-year-old art student who'd been walking her dog near the intersection. Lila, with her sketchbook tucked under her arm and her earbuds blasting lo-fi beats, had seen everything. She'd watched Karen's SUV weave aggressively, tailgating Ethan's hatchback while he tried to keep his distance. Lila hesitated to come forward. She was shy, prone to anxiety, but the injustice gnawed at her. She approached Officer Delgado, her voice barely above a whisper. "I saw it," she said, handing over her phone, which held a shaky video she'd recorded of the incident. She was the one chasing him. The CCTV footage, combined with Lila's video, painted a damning picture. Karen's SUV was seen accelerating toward Ethan's car, cutting him off, and breaking abruptly, classic signs of road rage. Ethan, meanwhile, had kept a steady pace, his driving cautious and controlled. The evidence was undeniable, and Karen's story began to crumble. Back at the station, Karen sat in a sterile interview room, her arms crossed tightly. Officer Delgado entered, her expression unreadable. "Ms. Whitaker," she said, "the footage shows you were the one tailgating. You endangered Mr. Carter, not the other way around." Karen's jaw dropped, her eyes wide with feigned shock. "That's impossible," she sputtered. "He must have edited the video. He's lying." But the officer wasn't swayed. "We also have a witness," she added, nodding toward Lila, who stood nervously in the hallway, clutching her sketchbook like a shield. The truth hit Karen like a freight train. Her carefully constructed image, the righteous, wronged citizen, was unraveling. She'd spent years building a reputation as the town's moral arbiter. But now she was exposed as the aggressor, her anger laid bare for all to see. The officers issued her a citation for reckless driving, and the news spread like wildfire through Willow Creek. Whispers turned to outright gossip. Karen Whitaker, the tailgater. Karen Whitaker, the liar. But the story didn't end there. Ethan, shaken but relieved, returned to Brood Awakening, where his co-workers rallied around him. Lila, emboldened by her small act of courage, began sketching a mural inspired by the incident, a vibrant piece depicting a lone car navigating a storm of chaos, with a single figure standing firm, holding a light. It was her way of processing the day, of turning fear into art. Karen, meanwhile, retreated to her pristine suburban home, the silence deafening. Her daughter, 16-year-old Sophie, sat at the kitchen table, scrolling through her phone. The local news had picked up the story, and Sophie's friends were already texting her screenshots of Karen's outburst. "Mom," Sophie said, her voice heavy with disappointment, "why did you lie?" Karen opened her mouth to protest, to spin another story, but the words wouldn't come. For the first time, she saw herself through her daughter's eyes, not as a protector, but as a bully. The weight of her actions settled over her like a fog. Karen had always believed she was right, that her anger was justified, that the world needed her to set it straight. But now, faced with the truth, she felt small, exposed, and utterly alone. She'd screamed about a reckless driver, but the real danger had been her own unchecked rage. And as the town turned its back on her, Karen realized the bitterest truth of all. The person she'd been fighting all along was herself. Nd.